The first ever Global Apex at Home event continues. My name is Vlad Uvarov, and I'm the development manager on the Oracle Apex dev team in Reston, Virginia, which is also known as Oracle Apex Global Headquarters. It is my pleasure to introduce your next speaker. He is the founder and director of Apex R&D, an IT services company based in Belgium. He is also the founder of a popular Apex printing solution, Apex Office Print. You've heard several speakers mention it today. He's a frequent presenter at all of the major Oracle conferences, and he received several awards, among those Oracle Apex Developer of the Year. So please welcome Oracle ACE Director, Dimitri Gielis.
Hey, thanks, Vlad. Thanks for the kind words. So welcome, everybody. I'm presenting from Belgium, and it's sunny outside, but everybody is locked in. So I'll try to bring some light into the always free autonomous cloud. We got something from Oracle, and I think it's a really nice solution. So Vlad already talked about me. If you want to see some of the products that some people already mentioned, apexofficeprint.com, and we also have another product to do image conversion. So you can grayscale or you can resize images from Pale SQL. It's a replacement for Oracle Intermedia. You can go to apexmediaextension.com. I'll present. So this presentation, I did a lot of blogging on the Oracle Free Cloud, and I try to share my knowledge on my blog. And you can also reach me on Twitter. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. So this always free cloud thing, I think like in my career, I really love Oracle. And there are three major times when Oracle really surprised me, or when I was really impressed with Oracle. When I was a kid and I saw the Oracle database for the first time, I said, wow, I want to work with that. And I want to work for Oracle, so I did that. Next, when Apex came along, or HTMLDB at that time, that was the second time I said, man, Oracle is doing some great things, and I want to focus on this. I was doing more DBA kind of things. I really love the database. I want to do everything with the database, and then Apex came along and it could bring the data to life. I could show other people this data in different ways and give people access to data, or give them data entry possibilities very easy from the web. And then the third time was in 2019, when Oracle announced the Oracle Free Cloud. And this is absolutely like a game changer. Joel already mentioned during the keynote the 20 years that have been passed and what happened to Apex. But this is really something amazing again that Oracle is doing. You can basically get a free database in the cloud, and you have free machines, and it lists here like all the things that you get. So Larry announces, he mentioned also Apex, and like it has been phenomenal. So when I saw this announcement, I said, I have to blog about this. I blog about my passion. I blog a lot about Apex, so I have to blog about this too. So this is what I did. Like the day that they announced, or the next day, I did a blog post, best and cheapest Oracle Apex hosting, Oracle Free Cloud. And it turned out in a 19 series blog post. So the topics that I cover, I really try to, like everything that I did, I took a screenshot, and I wanted to show how easy it is to get working with this. So the first blog post I did is, how do you sign up for this free Oracle Cloud? The second one was, how do you set up Autonomous Transaction Cloud? This is the best database, in my opinion, that Oracle has, and the best service. Like the database is running autonomously. You don't have to do anything for it. It works. Next, like you have now this database. How do you connect from SQL Developer? How do you do that? You have the desktop one, and you have also a web version of SQL Developer, which first was only with the autonomous database, but now you have it with ORDS as well. Then the fifth blog post I did is how do you set up Apex in ATP and create your first Apex application. So I will go over those blog posts just like I'm doing now, the 19, and then I will cover some of the things that I didn't cover and I want to show in this presentation. But first, to get everybody up to speed, I want to highlight the things that I blogged about. You can just go there and you can try it. I don't think there's much sense for me to put this in a presentation and do what I did on the blog post because I was really extensive in the blog post. But I will cover some other things. So to get everybody up to speed, I also created a virtual machine instance, it's called. So you have the database, but you also want some kind of web server, or you want some blogging platform, or you want to even run PHP applications, or you want you just want to have a machine. Oracle gives that to you too. You get actually 2 of those. What I did with this VM, and that was on the 7th blog post, I added a web server on top of this. So I added an Nginx server. So this allowed me to, if you go, for example, to Gielis.com, it would redirect to a website that's running on the VM in the Oracle Cloud. The next thing, of course, is like you want to front end your Apex applications with this web server. So you have friendly domain names for your Apex apps. I'll cover that too. Then, of course, like we have our printing solution. I wanted to show how easy it is to get that hooked up in the Oracle Cloud. The next one that I did is you also get object storage. You can compare it to Dropbox or OneDrive or like a sharing thing. You have, or Amazon S3, for example, you have a place, buckets they call it, like you can add any file, any data on top of this object storage. But it's really important to understand object storage or to know that it exists, because you don't have access to an autonomous database through command line. So for example, if you want to query something, like you want to go into the machine and you want to do SQL Plus, or you want to do a rapid data pump straight from the machine, you cannot do that. So how do you do those things? You do it with object storage. And I will actually show in a demo later on how you can actually do that. The next post I did, when you look at the blog post, I showed how to hook up SQL and this data pump and how you run it from this compute instance. SQL it's like SQL Plus, but then like a new version, and it has more features, like it can export your Apex application really like in one command. Like for me, it's the next version of SQL Plus, but then and much better. A question I got a lot, and like when we build Apex applications, we want to send emails from it. So how can you do this from your autonomous cloud? And you can, and I'll show you in blog post 11 how you do that. And I'll cover this because I think people will have questions on this. I'll show that again in the live demo. Further on, I created like a second compute instance. I added a load balancer in front of that. Then some final things to take away, like what do you do if you run out of space? Because like this free thing, it's limited, right? So at some point you might run out of space. Although you get a lot, it might happen. And then I thought I was finished. Like my initial goal was to do 13 blog posts. So it turned out I wasn't finished. So I added a next post because I got a strange email and which said like your Oracle Cloud free trial has expired. And I couldn't understand because like you get this Oracle free cloud forever and it should be free forever. And it should always be there. So why did I get this message? Well, whenever you hook up the first time for the Oracle Cloud, you get also free credits. So Oracle has much more in the cloud than just this free offering. So to try these out, you can use the free credits. and those expire after 30 days. So that was just a clarification of that message. Then the next thing is I got an error. So the error was the request could not be mapped to any database. And many people actually got this. So I built this APX application and I log into it like every day. And then I was on holiday, I didn't log in, and I came back, and when I go to the URL, it didn't work anymore. So what happens is that Oracle stops the instance when it's not running for a couple, like 7 days or whatever the time frame is now. So then you get this message. No, you don't lose anything. You can just go into the Oracle Cloud and you can say start again, and then it will start. But if you didn't know, like, you might be surprised and you might be afraid, like, what happened. If you don't touch your database for 30 days, then you'll lose everything. Or potentially, like, Oracle might take everything away. So you really want to touch, or you want to keep using the Oracle Free Cloud if you want to keep your data there. Then I built this website or this web server. So when you go to gielis.com, like, you want HTTPS, right? So Let's Encrypt, I showed in my blog post how you can get Let's Encrypt working, which provides you a free HTTPS certificate for your domain, and that expires. So you have to renew that. You can do it with a cron job. I show in the blog post how you do that. Then, of course, a website. We are all Apex developers, or many of us are Apex developers. They want going from a URL straight to the Apex app. So I show in blog post 17 how you redirect to your Apex app straight away. And then I go into some monitoring. I have some applications which I built for schools, and the free service is perfect for that. The students use it, but like, you want to monitor it, right? Like, you don't want to get a call of the teacher like, oh, the application isn't there, or like the students can not work. So I set up some monitoring. I use an external service for that, and I will talk about that a bit more later on in this presentation too. And then of course, the Oracle comes out, or the Apex team came out with a new version. Like, when does Oracle upgrade this ATP? So I go into that in my last blog post so far, where I talk, like, before it was 19.1, and like, my instance was stopped. When I started it, it automatically upgraded to 19.2. And that happened to many people. So Oracle decides at the moment themselves when they upgrade the instances, but they do it at some point. And the plan at least is that they will do it very soon. So if you use a service, you need to know that. So if Apex 21 comes out and they will roll it out, you want to make sure that your applications are compatible with that version. Okay, so that's what I covered in blog post, and I don't really want to cover it in this presentation. So what will I cover here then? I want to show live how you can move your data in your Apex application to this always free autonomous cloud. Like, many of us, we already have like a virtual machine running, or we have some other servers that we use. So how can you get your data from it, and how can you get started in the always free autonomous cloud? That's the first thing that I will show. The second thing I want to show is how can you get more out of it. So we have 20 gigabyte. How can you really use it to the full potential? And I'll talk about advanced compression. The next thing is, like, I want to do some fun stuff. I have so much. Like, I'm now locked down, right? So I have so much time. So I want to see how I can let this free thing suffer a bit and monitor how it is performing. No, it's a joke. I want to just see, like, how are my applications doing? How is the service doing? And if something goes down, I want to be notified. So I will go into that. The next bit is how do you automate your backups? I won't really cover it, but because like when I was reviewing, I already covered it in the blog post. So I will run over in the blog post. I won't show that live. And then the last thing is I will, like I call it your setup production from always free autonomous cloud. For me, many things that are running in always free are already production. But if you reach that limit or you want to go to more paid service, how do you do this? Or you want to upgrade your always, not even upgrade, like you want to try different things and you want to clone an instance, that's what I'm going to show in my last demo. So when you look at this, it's really, I believe that the always free autonomous cloud today is much more mature than it was 6 months ago. 6 months, like I monitored from September, right? And it went down several times. Like this, there was a bug where like it shut down the instance and then I had to start up again. All that is now solved. It looks, at least it looks like that for me, because I have no monitoring setup. And I must say, like, I'm really impressed the last weeks or even months. It has been much better in time of like, it's always there. Like, it's amazing. So this presentation, I wanted to show I think now it's time that you can really try it and you can use it for real services, but you need to do some stuff around it to give you this warm, fuzzy feeling and a blanket that you can rely on. Okay, I put it out there. It's a free thing. Whenever I need, like if something happens, I have a backup. I can always go back or I can do something else, but I can rely on it. So I want to give it, I hope that I can show you with this presentation that that's today the case. Okay, so let's start. So how do we get this database in the free cloud? And I first thought, well, I'm just going to show like how to move this, or I will just talk about like if you have existing data and we move that. That will be my demo. But if you're just starting, I want to highlight a feature of Apex. So I would set up Apex and I will use Quick SQL. I have a blog post about that too. And actually, like Joel mentioned it during his keynote, the Apex team did it to build the COVID-19 application. So they use Quick SQL to create the data model, their tables, their underlying database objects. And it's a really fast way to build your tables and get some things around like auditing and like has a lot of features, but also like sample data. If you want to get started and you want some sample data, it provides all that. So if you didn't know about this yet, definitely, if you are starting from scratch, you want to look at Quick SQL, you find it in a SQL workshop, SQL scripts. And then once you build your data model or your tables, you can build an Apex application on top of this data model. And it's really nice. So what if you already have this existing database? What we will do is, it basically comes down to two things that you have to do. You import your data with Data Pump, and you import your Apex application. So before you can import, you have to export your database, XPP. You have to transfer the file to somewhere, and then you have to export, like in a normal way, I would export my workspace. So the workspace ID is identical, all the users are there, and I would export my Apex app. I found that exporting the workspace is a challenge to import that in the always free cloud because like there are some, the way that users work is a bit different, or it's like not allowed. But I'll show that in the demo too. Here, just like if people look at the slides, I wanted to have some comments in. I have a full demo script too, which I will make available on my GitHub page. But like to import a database in this ATP, this is basically what the commands that we will use in the live demo. So OCI stands for Oracle Command Line Interface. So with the command line, we upload our data pump into our object storage. So if you don't know what object storage is, I have a blog post for that. And how can you set up an object storage? I go into full detail in the blog post. Here, this is already set up. We will upload it to a certain area. We call it a bucket in this object storage. The next thing is we create a user. So you can let the data pump create a user, but I found it's more easy or more convenient to first create the users. I always do, like whenever I move to ATP, the free ATP, I mean, I use schema data pumps, and I create the schema or the user myself first, because I can then say like use the default table space, which is data in ATP, and then give like the grants that I wanted to give, and then quote unlimited on this data. It makes it for me much easier to move to the ATP. So this is, we get the file somewhere. So the data pump is available in cloud storage. We create a user in our database, and then we will import this data pump. So I import like a specific schema or like, and I remap a table space. Next, I create a new workspace, and then I import my Apex app in this new workspace. So let me quickly show that. Vlad, like if you think there are questions that I should answer straight away, like please interrupt me, and otherwise we can keep it till the end.
We're good, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Vlad. Okay, so here, because I wanted to give like the whole, maybe I'll create some blog posts of this, but if you are downloading it, this is how I did on the existing system. I connect with SQL+, I search for the directory where like by default there's a data pump directory. So where's my data pump going to be? I export my data pump, or I do an export of my schema. So here I call Apex Media Extension schema. I export that. Here's the output, what it did. It put it in this file. So this is all what happened on my existing environment. And I export the workspace and the Apex application through the Apex Builder. So now here on the new system, we want to get started. But the first thing you want to do is you want to look at this blog post, because you need some tools, and we are going to use SQL CL. So I go into this blog post and I'll show it. So here, this is the main one. So if you need to know one, it's the one in September. So when you look at September 2019, the first one here, best and cheapest Oracle Apex hosting, and here's a reference to all the other blog posts. So the 10th one is running SQL CL and data pump from your compute instance. It's this one here. And I walk you basically how you do this. So how you install the tools that you need. So you need like Oracle Instant Client. So step by step, I tell you how to do this in your environment, how to like upload a file so you can access your database, how to install SQL CL. So really step by step, I do this. I'm not going to do it in this presentation. And if you want to do an export, I'll show it here too. So let me go back to the script. So the first thing is this data pump. So here I have some optional thing, and I wanted to talk about that. Like if like I have now the file on my file system. So if I have the tools running to connect to the Oracle Cloud, I can do it from my file system. If you don't have it, what I recommend is we call it the bastion. It's basically your your virtual machine, like your machine in the cloud. We call it a bastion host, like connect to that and set up everything there. And then this allows you to even connect with multiple people to the same instance and do your scripts from there. So this is optional. The first thing I want to do is I want to upload this data pump file to the object storage. So when we go here, so this is my Oracle Cloud. I go to object storage. I have a few buckets. Session expired. Okay. Let me log in again. Okay, so object storage. So in the blog post, I tell you how to set this up, but we have different areas. So they are called buckets. So here's like my command line interface bucket, if you want. And I have those two files in there. I want to get my data pump in here because I want to load it later on with data pump. So I have here on the left, this is my system. Here on the right, this is the Oracle Cloud. So the first command I'm going to run is I'm going into my directory where my data pump is. So here's my data pump. Next, I will call this utility, and I will put this data pump in this bucket. So I'll do that. So uploading object, 100% done. It gives me some information. So if I go here and I would refresh this, here's my data pump. So from a command line, I uploaded my data pump. The next thing we are going to do is, first I want to say something else. So this was a 5 megabyte file just to make things easy and fast. But if you have a big data pump, like a few days ago, it was 88 gigabyte data pump, or zip file even. So when you have to upload those type of data, you have some more options. You can do things in parallel, and I put a comment here. So you can parallel upload. The tool will, like this one file, it will separate it, and it will go in parallel doing the upload. There's also a bulk upload. If you already have a data pump, which sort of like are split in multiple files, you can upload the directory too. Okay, so if you use a bastion host, it's better to upload the zip file and then unpack the zip file there. We are not doing that. So here, the first thing now I'm going to do in my database is I'll create a new user. So let me go here. I'll connect to my database. I need my password. Okay, I'm connected to my ATP database from my compute instance. And now I will create a new user with the default table space with my password. So I'll copy this. Okay, so user is there. I can exit here, and now I'm going to load my data pump in there. So if you look at this command, so MDP, import data pump, connect to my machine, to the ATP machine, the directory data pump there. I have some credentials, and then here's my dump file. Now this dump file is my data pump file here. So I should be able to grab this here and put it here. And then I remap my table space because in the original system it was different. So let's try that. Password again. So here in SQL Developer, I'm connected to my free cloud. I hope I still have a connection. Let's see. Maybe that expired too. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so here let's see what the data pump did. So MDP, it connected, successfully loaded. It had the user already existed, yes, because I created it before. Table space quota, we don't have this table space. We mapped it to a different one. I have like one thing related to the quota, but here's my table, 2 tables, which got uploaded. It's still uploading some packages. So let's see here now if I find this user, Apex Media Extension. Let's look at the tables. Here's my table. And I should also see data in here. So here's data. So blobs are the most difficult thing to upload. So let's see if it's a valid one. Okay, so it works. So I moved basically my data to the Oracle Cloud, ATP, in not much time. Okay, so the next thing we have to do, so here is also screenshot of the output. We want to create our workspace. And we want to import our application. So let's go to our ATP. So here are my databases. Here's my always free database. And we go to tools, we go to Apex. The first time you run Apex, you have to set it up. This is covered in my blog post. I'm going to log in as internal, admin, and my password. Manage workspaces. We are going to create a new workspace, database user, Apex Media Extension. And here's the thing, like I cannot change the password, like it's the database user password. The workspace name, I'll leave it like this. Create workspace, I did that. So now I can go to my workspace, Apex Media Extension. Here you don't really have a choice. So by default, the same schema, Apex Media Extension. So the same name as your Oracle schema or Oracle user. And my password is the one of the schema. Oh, Apex Media Extension. Okay, so welcome to Oracle Application Express. Great, set up Apex. Okay, we'll set up, give it an email address. And here we give it a new password. So our workspace is there. We don't have any applications yet. So the next thing we do is we import our application. So this was what I prepared, my data pump, my workspace, but I didn't use that. And my Apex application. This is straightforward. So we import the Apex application. Auto assign new application ID, that's fine. This application also has some supporting objects, but I'm not going to install these. Okay, so create. We're done. Okay, so I can log in with Apex Media Extension. And here's our application. So we moved our data and the Apex application to ATP. So that's my first demo. So let's see. Yeah, okay. So let's move on to the next bit. So we are limited in space that we have, but you get the best database, right? So you can do a lot. I didn't really use advanced compression before ADP, but I'm doing this now. So it's very easy to use. When you create your table, if you specify row store compressed advanced, it's basically you run you use advanced compression. So your data will be, it's the same data, but it will take in less space. If you already have tables, like we just moved our entire database or schema into the ATP, the tables are already there, they're not compressed. So you can also do an alter table, row store compress advanced, then it will compress any future data. If you use the move in front of it, it will also compress the data that exists in the table. So here's create table DB compressed, and row store compressed advanced is the most important thing at the end. If you want to check the compression, this is what I do. And if you want to test it yourself, this is what I want to do in my second demo. So let's go back to Apex. So you can do it from SQL Workshop. You can do it from SQL Developer. Let me bump up here the screen a bit. So this is where I had a lot of fun to prepare this presentation. So create table, DB not compressed, select star from all objects. This is a very big view. Let's see how many rows are there in this table now. 11,729. So now I will create table DB compressed with this special clause. Okay, my table is created. And I'll insert the same data from this, from the DB not compressed table to the DB compressed one. Okay, 11,000 records inserted. So now I'll check just to make sure I have all the data. Yeah, it's cool. And I want to get our, like here I could just do the table statistics, but in order to get the views right of, oh, I did it wrong. I need to do Apex Media. In order to let Oracle know how many rows I have in certain views, you have to do, it's based on the statistics, but I say estimate % null, so it's doing like the full thing. It's really checking how many rows do I have. Okay, so now I query this user tables and I check the number of rows and like if it is compressed, so compression, and I look at the size that both tables have. So this is what I see. DB not compressed, 11,000 rows, same as the other one, but my size, so I have 1 megabyte, 1.7 megabyte in the DB not compressed one, the exact same data in the DB compressed, less than 1/3 of the size. So it's really advantage to use advanced compression, I think. And something I would definitely do in ADP because it's there and you have it. Here it also say compression enabled, and here's disabled. Okay, so that was a quick hint. Performance monitoring. Let's look at that. So I really wanted to know how is this thing performing. So two ways which I use. One is through Service Console and one is through Performance Hub. Performance Hub, I think, is a newer version. Maybe at the end they will remove Service Console, I don't know, but it looks like this is a newer version. It gives you a lot of things, but I will show this live. And here's the service console picture. So this is to do performance monitoring. And again, I'll show it in a minute. To do the uptime monitoring, there's another section in the Oracle Cloud which you can use. When you go to monitoring, you have specific things. And the most interesting things are alarms. You want to set up alarms. So for example, when the CPU is constantly high, I want to get notified by email or like a pager or something like that. And the second thing I also set up is my health check. Are still things running? If not, yeah, let me know. Okay, and so what I look for is instance availability and reachable. Like I don't want people to call me. I want to be notified myself so I can tell them, well, sorry, it's offline. Something happened, I'm looking into it. Then CPU utilization, I typically check that. I also check the queued statements and running statements because this gives me an idea if more resources are needed or if ADB is having issues. So let me demo those things real quick as well. So we go to the Oracle Cloud, and in order for me to run this demo, an easy way to hammer your database is when you use a connect by clause. So you can do connect by level. Let me do it from SQL Developer maybe, so I can kill it. It's still live. Well, let's do less than 2. So this is a long running query. So if I do this, oh, it's really fast now. If I do less than 3, oh, really fast too. Man, Oracle performed. Like, where's my SQL Developer? I don't really like it that I get disconnected all the time, but it's a good security measure. Okay, so let's do less than 5. Okay, man, it's still fast. Like yesterday, it took forever to, at least like it took a long time. But now it's, so anyway, you can generate some load. I can probably write some more complex thing. My only reason to run this thing is to get much load on the database. So let's see, well, it's performing really good. So first we go to Performance Hub. So here it checks the last hour, like what happened. So today it's really fast. Yesterday I had some more load, so I can look into that. Here you can do SQL monitoring, and here you have a SQL ID as well. So you can change those things here. I can look at SQL monitoring here, and you have a section below that too. So here with Ash, you have the SQL ID, and you can get more information here. But I can look into this now, and I find this really interesting. Like you have all those features available in SQL Developer, or many of them available in SQL Developer as well. But it's really convenient to have this in this dashboard too. So you can really see what's going on, SQL monitoring, SQL text, and you can really look much deeper what's happening. So let me go to this monitoring, service monitoring. So here I have some health checks. So I have already one. If I create a new health check, I give it a name, health 2, which is my target. I don't need that. From where do I want to check if things are running? It wouldn't make much sense if you check from the same data center, because if the data center goes down, like your check is not valid. So you really want to check it from somewhere else. So let's say we want to check it from here. What do we want to check? An HTTP request. most likely, if you want to test if your Apex application is still running, you do an HTTP, HTTPS, for example. You can add some header names, the method, like get, and what happens, like if you want to set it up, create a health check. Target. Well, sorry, the target here. So I found this a bit confusing the first time. So you can select the target, but you can also type like, I want to check if the Gielis.com is running. So this is what I'm adding here. So then I create this health check. So now Oracle is going to check, is the Gielis.com, is it still running? Is it, and is doing this every 5 minutes. It's the same as what I put in here, monitoring your website and Apex app. So here I used an external service, Uptime Robot, because it's checking from different places as well. And I checked here is ODS up and running. So you can do this from Oracle as well. The other thing here, and unfortunately I don't have time to show it, but let me show the alarms. So I couldn't hammer my database with a SQL statement yesterday. It would show up here because I would hit my limit, but I can mimic this. So high CPU usage, here you see when I had high CPU usage, I can edit this alarm. And if I would say, so every 1 minute, it checks whenever my value is more than 90% CPU using, if I would say like 1% CPU, it would probably, the alarm would go off. And well, I didn't show it, but you can specify here what needs to be done. So I want to be notification service, and it's sending me an email. You can change this. You can create a topic. So here you have email function, custom URL. So you could call an ODS web service and store that some value, like something went down or something. You can even have like Slack integration, so you get a Slack notification. So I quite like that. Let me go back. If I run this thing again. And let's see if is it still running? Yeah, so it's too fast. Like you would see an alarm in here that it went too high, but like it didn't run over a minute. So I would really need to, I would need to be lucky to get something to see. Oh, well, I was lucky, I guess. Okay, so the critical warning, the CPU went over 1% when I ran that SQL query. Okay, so let's move on.
Hey, Dimitri, time check. We have a few minutes before we need to answer some questions.
Yeah. So automated backups. This is basically the blog post. So I was not going to do a live demo of this. So here you can basically follow along. It's the 10th one as well. And at the bottom, I have a script. How you can automate everything. So you can just look here. I use SQL to export the Apex application, and here's my script to make a backup. So just check that out. And the last thing, if we need more, so this is cloning of a database. And I find it really useful. So let me just show it. So let's go to here. So those are my databases. What I can do here, let me go into one. Here with the actions menu, I can say create clone. And now I can say like create a full clone or just create a metadata, no data included. And I can go over this. I can say clone another always free because I have two, but then I cannot really change a database version. If I go to a paid version, I can go with 19C and I can change my OCP count and I can say create autonomous database clone, and that's it. That's the only thing you have to do, and you upgraded your autonomous database automatically. So sorry, this is cloning. There's also another option to say upgrade a database instance to paid. You can also do that. I like cloning better. You start in any project, you set up a free development account, you start a project, you work with it, and when you're happy, you clone it to a paid version, and you're up and running. So really nice feature. So creative test upgrades as well, metadata and data, increased OCPU count. What is interesting with ADP as well, you get one OCPU, but it can go up to 3 automatically if you have auto scaling on. I didn't really show it as a checkbox, and you get charged for the average. But this is really interesting for many of my projects where sometimes there's a big load. So ADP can automatically scale, really nice. Here are some screenshots. Select on star from all objects. Okay, Vlad, shoot.
Yes, thanks a lot, Dimitri. And for everybody else, I definitely recommend checking out Dimitri's blog post. A lot of detailed information right there. So there were several types of questions in the last 40 minutes, some of them about the autonomous database, some of them about compression and data migration. So let's start with the first one from Gohan. He says that after 1 or 2 days of non-using the always free autonomous database, his instance disappeared or his Apex apps stopped working. Is there a way to prevent this?
Well, like if you, the only way to prevent it is to make sure that your database is accessed or your Apex application is accessed. If you set up some monitoring, like automatically your Apex application is accessed, right? So, so that might be a way to circumvent that. So there are ways around it if you generate load and all that. But what happened is, so Johan is speaking about like 1 or 2 days. This was when there was a bug in the system and it didn't really recognize that there was load on the Apex application or REST requests. So yeah, for me, it didn't go down anymore since I have monitoring up and running. I need it because it's like production application. Or I want it to be always available for the students. So yeah, that's what I found. Just make sure that either you log in or like you generate some load.
All right, thank you. And Ilmars is asking, is there a way to automatically upgrade to a paid version of Autonomous Database once you reach the limits of the always free database?
Yeah, so this was what I showed in my last thing. So you have the 2 options. So you go into here, you say upgrade database instance to paid, that's one way, or you say create clone, and at that point you can specify I want the paid version. So here's the auto scaling, and here's, if you don't specify this, you have a paid version. So this is actually what I have in my mind. I have a clone, which is a paid version of the always free one. Oh, and I also want to thank Vlad, because Vlad is he helped me a lot with before the ATP, we had Exadata Express. Vlad did a lot of things. He's also involved in a lot of these things. So I'm really happy that you're the host of this. And I just want to say thank you to you as well, because I know that you're doing a lot for us.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to help. So another user is asking this question, which is interesting. What would be the best way to move a schema or an application that's deployed today on apex.oracle.com to always free autonomous database?
Yeah, maybe I should let you answer that.
Yeah, so I think the way I would approach this, I would probably use Apex SQL Workshop to generate a DDL of all your database objects. And if the objects are sufficiently small, probably use the data unload function of SQL Workshop as well. And then, as Dimitri Autonomous Database, of course, has the SQL Developer Web tool. So then from there, you can use those. You can use the scripts to execute in SQL Developer Web, and this is how your data and schema will be migrated. And as far as Apex applications, this could be as simple as export one by one and import into the Autonomous Database.
Yeah. So what I found with that, the data unload that you do from apex.oracle.com, you have to see what it depends the type of data. Like if you have a lot of blobs, it might be really hard to do it. So what I've been doing with not really apex.oracle.com, but with other environments, you can set up a REST web service, and then you can hook up to that REST web service to get all the data out of it. So REST enable your tables and get the data like that. I find that really convenient to get all the data out without doing data pump.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Thanks. And since you talked about compression when you migrated data into Autonomous Database, Reed is asking, is there an extra license required for using advanced compression with Autonomous Database? Do you know?
Yeah, so it's you don't need anything. So it's there. You don't need to pay for it. And this is the reason why I didn't use it before, because I believe it was paid. You had to pay for it. And now with ATP, you just have it. And this is why I use it now. So, and we are using the always free, so we don't pay anything, right? So.
Okay. And in your experience, is there any performance hit when you use the compression?
It's actually, in most cases, well, it depends. I always have to say, as Tom Kite says as well, it always depends, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. And everything would be like that. But in general, it depends where your load is. If your CPU is always like at 1% or 10%, it's much better to have, you don't have much bandwidth. Like you go and get the data and you uncompress it and like it's really fast. So in many cases, it's actually faster to use advanced compressions, what I found. Because like CPU is so fast, and you need to do less reads on disk or on flash.
All right, makes sense. And maybe the final question. Mohammed was asking earlier, do you know when the Autonomous Database will be upgraded to Apex 20.1?
I don't know. Maybe that's a question for you too, but I don't know if you can answer it.
Yeah, we as usual, we can't really comment on the dates, but I think the plan is once Apex 20.1 becomes generally available, it will take about a month for this release to be deployed and available to Autonomous Database customers. So this is the current plan. All right, I think this is all the time we have. Thanks, Dimitri, for your presentation. And we will start with the next session in about 2 or 3 minutes.